I mean, that is interesting. What people do not like to see in Classic Plus? Well, I think non-binary dragons is a good start.
Every single time Classic Plus comes up, the conversation goes rather the same way. People talk about the new stuff they want added mainly, the zones, the
Holly
raids, the
Longdale.
dungeons, maybe even a class and so on. And whilst all that stuff is interesting to talk about, it's also good to talk about maybe what shouldn't be in the game too. Because here's the thing about Classic Plus, it's not just going to be being made in a vacuum. Blizzard have 20 years of World of Warcraft history sitting there right in front of them in their toolbox, full of systems, mechanics and conveniences that have all worked for the game at some point in time. And it would be very easy for Blizzard to reach into that toolbox and to start picking out different pieces from different expansions that may fit into vanilla. But when you start to take away the friction, the inconvenience, the class imbalance and the slower pacing, you may not necessarily end up with a better version of vanilla. A lot of the time you just end up with a worse, lower budget version of whatever later expansion have been borrowed from. And I think that's going to be a tricky line to walk for Blizzard. So today, instead of going through what I'd love to see added into Classic Plus, I want to flip the script a bit and talk about a few things which I rather hope to not see. Not necessarily things that will be deal breakers for me, but things which I don't quite think would fit into a vanilla world. I'm also going to be skipping over a few really obvious ones which I don't really think need much explaining, such as no flying or no looking for raid, things like that. What I want to focus on are changes that sound reasonable on the surface and are actually worth a bit of discussion. These are also in no particular order, and some of them are definitely going to be a bit more contentious than others, so with
Add Holly as a world raid boss. Bro, if they do that, raid participation would increase to 100%.
that said, let's start on this. But before we go on, a quick word from today's sponsor, Exit Lag. If high ping or
Damn.
unstable connections
We
ever
got
cost
got.
you a raid pull or a
We got
PvP fight,
That's okay. I
Exit Lag
respect
is
the
software
hustle.
built
I respect the
specifically to
grind.
solve
My man
that.
is working.
Exit Lag is software designed to reduce ping,
Yeah,
cut
I don't want to
latency,
see
and
interfaces
stabilize
from
your
retail.
connection, and it works across more
What do you
than
mean by that?
4,000 games
I mean,
with
some
service spread
interfaces from
across
retail are great.
190 countries on 5 continents.
So,
The core
that's,
technology behind it is
I'm not really sure
multipath
what you mean
connection,
here.
which routes your data simultaneously through
Yikes.
multiple
Dude, look at this class. Ooh, how can you play as that? How is this even in World of Warcraft? Like, brother, if I show this to someone who, like, quit World of Warcraft in, like, Legion or something, do you think they would understand and realize that this is World of Warcraft nowadays? What is this? The Rainbow Beam? What is this attack? Yikes. I hate this entire body type 1-2 shit. Like, why can't you make them distinct? It's so weird. It's clearly supposed to represent, like, the scaly furry crap.
The first one is something that sounds small on paper, but is actually pretty big and changes how classes play completely, and that is Blizzard changing how stat scaling works. A good example here of what I mean is the differences between rogue poisons in vanilla, or TBC for that matter, compared to Wrath. So in vanilla, rogue poisons, specifically damage ones, are, well, I mean they're really bad, aren't they? They don't scale with attack power, they don't scale with spell power either, even though a lot of people think they used to, and they only scale with the bonus ranks of talent points in the assassination tree. However, at the start of Wrath, Blizzard made it so your poisons will begin to scale with your attack power instead, and suddenly
Ooh.
Assassination Rogue became a really good spec overnight. In many ways, they fixed the problem, but it also erased a class identity which could have existed in favor of a simple solution. Hunters had something similar happen to them at the start of Wrath, so in vanilla you have abilities that do magic damage, such as Arcane Shot, Volley, Serpent Sting, your fire traps, and so on. And these do scale with spell power in vanilla, but just really badly, as in it's kind of unplayably bad. And in Wrath, Blizzard made all these abilities scale with attack power instead, so you just build agility, get attack power, and it would give you tons of damage. But what if instead of that, the survival hunter tree was built around hunters wanting spell damage as their main damage dealing stat? It would create a whole new avenue for itemization and a new way to play this class.
Yeah, but why would you ever do that? You can just, like, copy paste the old system and that's it. You don't have to renovate anything. You don't have to make the game good. You can just go full season of discovery mode and just grab shit from other expansions and call it a day. It's the easiest, cheapest solution out there. And we know that that's what Blizzard always opt for. because they're incompetent bunch of losers.
I also hope we don't see Melee Hunter. I mean, come on, this game doesn't need more melee specs, does it? My concern for Classic Plus here is Blizzard is going to take the easy route and just say, make things scale with attack power or spell power where they make sense doing so, instead of keeping that vanilla itemization alive. And vanilla itemization is part of what makes the game interesting compared to other versions of WoW. This would introduce certain pieces of armor which are going to be very specifically good for one spec, but for example, if Spell Power Hunter existed, they'd be sharing items with Elemental Shamans. If Spell Power Rogue existed, they'll be sharing items with Boomkins, so there is a bit of crossover, and sometimes your best armor isn't always the intended one too. All in all though, I hope Blizzard don't just go down the route of this stat now scales with this and makes it do damage. Next is about class balancing. So class balance in vanilla is bad, like it's hilariously bad. Everyone who knows the game has ever played it, and it's very much
Damn, DPS priest at the bottom. You can't see it because my camera is in the way, so let me just move myself. By the way, guys, do you want to guess what I played in vanilla and TBC later? Literally the bottom two classes. I played a Night Elf Shadow Priest, which is the worst version of a priest. And then I upgraded myself to Retribution Paladin for TBC. It's like I had the sole intention of making myself suck at the game as hard as I could. Man, that was glorious. But you know what? I don't care. I enjoyed every single minute of it. Team of Warlock, exactly. But you know something funny, my brother? Whenever there was this one raid called Blackwing Lair, and you had those creatures who had elemental weakness, and that weakness was Arcane, I got to pop the hell off with Arcane Fall or Arcane Barrage, however this ability the Night Elf Priest gets. It was so good. I called out all the Warlocks, all the mages, and they got absolutely dunked on. That was good. That's a once in a lifetime feeling. It's worth sacrificing your DPS on every other front just to get this sweet massive W.
something we just accept. And I think for Classic
Yeah,
Plus,
also
a lot
they
of
were
people are
monsters in
expecting
PvP,
Blizzard
yeah.
to rein
That's
in
true.
class balance a little bit and get numbers a bit closer across the board, which I agree with, but just not to the extent of what they do in retail. What I'm concerned is that Blizzard overdo it and try and tune things too much, to the point where everything is in a single-digit percentage number of one another. That level of balance would require constant tuning passes, frequent hotfixes, and the willingness to treat every spec as a fully realized competitive option. And that mindset just kind of doesn't really work in Classic that much, I don't think. It also tends to come with some side effects such as class homogenization, where every class is doing roughly the same thing and has a similar toolkit of abilities. What I'd love to see first is something in the middle where it's more gameplay first and then balance second. Fill out the very basic PvE rotations for specs that are bare bones.
There is such an easy solution to this that nobody wants to implement for some reason, but that is strength and weaknesses. D&D already solved it 100 times over. We really don't need to break our heads over it. It's so simple. Not every character should shine in every battle. Certain bosses should have certain affinities that makes them vulnerable to some and strong against others. That means that, for example, if I play a warrior, and there's a boss that is really, really good at protecting against physical attacks, like have really high ridiculous armor values, suddenly every physical DPS becomes less powerful, and every single mage type or magical based character gets 10 times stronger. Spell damage based character gets way more stronger and beneficial, and vice versa, right? You can go the other way about it, and you can make it special to different elements. So let's say a boss that's really good against Shadow, suddenly Shadow damage isn't that applicable, so Warlocks and Shadow Priests kind of get the rough end there, but maybe maybe like an Owl Druid who can do arcane damage can suddenly blast them and pop the hell off. That's how you go about it. And the funny thing is, Blizzard kinda did that with Molten Core. They did it the wrong way though. I think they made them completely immune to fire damage, which I gotta respect. Like, it's actually true, right? Where you can defeat Ragnaros with a fireball. It's just weird. So they did kind of went this route and abandoned it real quick. So unfortunately, we don't get to see it as often, but that's how you solve it. Not everyone should top the DPS meters at every single battle. You should have different heroes shining at different, at different situations.
Example, most casters in the game just press a singular button at endgame. I don't think that's terribly engaging. We could use a little bit more there. All the same, this should be done slowly, because when you introduce something, you can't exactly just take it away again and say, oh my bad, that was a mistake. Better class balancing should absolutely be a thing, but getting everything right within a few percentage points of each other, I just don't really think it matters that much for Classic. Speaking about class balancing, I want to talk about another retail feature which was brought in Legion, and that is Mythic Plus. And this is probably one of the most successful retail WoW systems ever. The whole
Yep.
concept of Mythic Plus is that you're doing dungeons you've already done on an endlessly scaling difficulty.
Yeah, it's so successful, by the way, that you need to wait. I think the average time is like 1 hour if you're not playing a tank. It's so successful. Truly. But don't get me wrong, Mythic Plus is fun. The way that it's currently implemented is very poor. I think you can make Mythic Plus fun. It's just a matter of tweaking a bit.
Level, so you can constantly push yourself, chase for the fastest times in the world, and upgrade your gear. It works great for retail where all classes have a wide toolkit of abilities, and it wouldn't work in Classic whatsoever for the exact same reason, because
True.
most of the classes in the game are kind of just, well, how can I put it, helpless. At the end of the day in retail, there's always going to be a gap between the best and worst performing specs and those specs that have the best synergy. But if you think getting into a key will be hard in retail, imagine getting into a key in Classic as Boomkin, or a Rep Pally, or Enhancement, or Elemental, or Shadow Priest. Realistically, you'd end up with Dungeon Cleave comps, but just with endgame gear instead. You'd have groups with a bunch of mages AoEing everything down, or a group with 3 warriors, 2 healing on Horde with Wind Fury. On top of that, I don't think the timer system from Mythic Plus feels good for Classic either. It's really just not that type of game. Maybe there's another way Blizzard can keep dungeons alive, but Mythic Plus, I really just don't.
There is, just have 2 difficulties. Make Heroic the new Mythic and make like normal, and it will be fine. You don't have to go the Mythic Plus route. You can add some sort of a Mythic Plus version with a timer in case some people want to sweat it out and be at the top of the leaderboards, but it should never give us like stronger gear. If anyone wants to be competitive inside of an MMORPG, go play something else. MMORPGs are simply not for you. I don't care that you like that stuff, I really don't. We need to focus on the average person. The average player isn't into that kind of shit. I really could not care less about the opinions of streamers. When it comes to Classic Plus, we need to keep the average player best intentions in mind.
Don't think is it. The next one is going to be the first one I think a lot of people will disagree with. So you know how in Wrath Classic when you get a mount, a toy, or a companion pet, you right click it and it goes into your collection tab. It was like that in Wrath Classic, at least it didn't work like that in original Wrath. Well, not entirely. But anyway, there's something about the convenience part of it that just doesn't quite sit right with me for Classic. It's just too easy. It sounds stupid, but I'm going to say it again, it's too convenient. For me, planning around your bags, managing your bank space, and actually deciding what you want to take with you has always been part of the vanilla experience. It's a small part of the friction that exists within the game, and if everything was account-wide as well, you'd be able to summon things on alts who are lower level, where it wouldn't necessarily have made sense for them to have achieved that item or mount. However, I absolutely acknowledge that Blizzard are going to be introducing a bunch more stuff into the game, and they're going to need to come up with a solution here, because even at the moment it's really easy to fill up your bags and bank with loads of technically useless stuff but collectibles. Maybe the stables could get more slots, maybe there could be special bank tabs for pets, who knows, but the collection tab I just don't think's quite it. The next one is a cluster of changes which primarily are related to Wrath of the Lich King, and this is me saying I hope Blizzard don't speed things up just for the convenience factor. Things such as faster gathering, one-tap mining, mounts becoming available at lower levels, and even AoE looting are things which just speed up the experience in kind of an unnecessary way. There's one exception which I'll probably be okay with, and that's not being dismounted in water, but I don't think that's a terribly big deal, just get better at jumping for the most part. But there's a reason Blizzard started to speed things up in the old world as they rolled out expansions, because Blizzard didn't want you to have to play through 100 hours of vanilla content and then 50 or 60 hours of TBC before you finally got onto Wrath of the Lich King. They wanted you in Northrend as soon as possible.
So create a system that has an account-wide XP boost, so you have to go throughout the entire game once, and if you want to open an ult, you'll have a much smoother experience going it for the second time, or third time, or fourth time. It's so easy to implement that. FF14 literally done this. FF14 has solved this. So that is like what makes me so, oh man, it makes me so mad, because you can have everything on one character. Now, it's okay if you dislike it, you don't want it to be this way, that's completely fine. Blizzard don't have to copy FF14 1-to-1. They can implement a system that is account wide that helps you level up with ults faster. They can definitely do it, but they don't want to do it because they want to sell you boosts. So that is the real problem. It's not really that they can't, it's that they don't want to.
Classic Plus should not have that pressure to catch up and to level. If people start asking, is it too late to play, or feeling as though they are too behind, Blizzard have just fallen into the same trap that they've experienced throughout 20 years of WoW development. A slow-paced game in a slow-paced world is fine for Classic Plus. The next thing I hope we don't see is a full transmog system, and I say a full transmog
another one
system
against
deliberately
transmog.
so.
That's interesting, guys. I want to ask you, are you pro transmog or against it? I think for me it's like a 50-50 issue because I do love transmogs. I do love that I can customize myself and kind of dispel the whole homogenization of appearance in the end game, because in the end game you already know in classic World of Warcraft everyone looks the same. And it's kind of problematic, but at the same time, it completely breaks the immersion. So I'm also against this. It was always like a 50-50 issues for me. I think this is one of the problems that I just let Blizzard take the reins over. Just, completely take the wheel, decide whatever. I don't care if it goes one way or the other, but that's just a me thing. I'm really interested in hearing what you guys think of it. Yo, I found your channel not too long ago. Been enjoying the YouTube videos so far. Keep up, bro. I really enjoy your content. I like the way you talk about things, including base takes and soft rage bait. Nah, I never rage bait. I just say the truth, and Karens get mad. There's a difference. But thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I'm pro transmog. Transmog is very important. Interesting. Okay, fair enough. So we've seen two people that say that it's completely garbage and should be removed. And then you guys say that you like it. So you see, it's a very, very contentious topic. I really don't know how you can solve it. I really don't. You can create a button that essentially just shots off transmogs for everyone, but I don't like it that player A sees one thing and player Y sees another thing. It's very inconsistent, and it can lead to some really weird conversation. I like when everyone are on the same level and sees the exact same thing. It's the same reason for why I'm against phasing in current retail World of Warcraft. It just completely takes off the immersion and breaks everything. So maybe just a me thing. Transmog is one of the most important parts of an MMO. No one wants to wear a clown suit. I can see that. That's a fair argument. What's wrong with Transmog? It doesn't show your true gear. You can look at someone and know exactly what he's wearing and what he's done based on his looks. If someone has the corrupted Ashbringer, for example, you know that that mofo has slayed Nexramis thousands of times. And that's like cool. And also they have a unique armor, and you can say they can choose to display it, but sometimes those armors look kind of stupid. And I mean, yeah, it is what it is. Also, Blizzard has way more control over how cool an immersive player looks, because old World of Warcraft armors used to fit the environment. They used to fit. Nowadays, if you look at retail World of Warcraft, everyone looking like clowns. Everyone wearing like Murloc onesies and all of these type of weird contrived garbage. And, for some people it's cool, but for others it breaks the immersion entirely. So, it's at the end of the day, it's like, it is what it is, right? I think people shouldn't be able to wear a transmog if they didn't pay for it. Bad design, true.
Give me a moment to explain myself. Because full transmog allows you to do whatever you want with any of your armor pieces, including hiding them. And I think there's honestly something nice about looking at another player in a raid or a city and seeing what they've done based upon what they are wearing. You can see what raids they've done, what they've farmed, perhaps what legendaries they have, all those kind of things. Full transmog erases all of that information and replaces it with, well, just about whatever they fancy. And let's be honest, there are some truly obnoxious transmogs out there. I'm so thankful in Classic that I've never had to see a Tauren dressed up as Mario ever. And you know what? I want to keep it that way. However, that doesn't mean there's zero room for cosmetic systems here, potentially. I think there are better ways that Blizzard could let players express themselves without just opening the floodgates completely. Things such as weapon enchants, maybe capes, tabards, or even class-specific cosmetic rewards from completing certain things. Imagine hunters hunters with a specific quiver or an ammo pouch, rogues get a belt with poisons and little knives on and stuff, or different totem appearances for shamans. Those type of cosmetic effects could be tied to achievements or quest lines rather than just some universal toggle anyone can access at any time. You can even do weapon attack animation overlays, though that's probably a bit much, but imagine if you're a troll hunter and your auto attacks and animations were you throwing axes instead of using a bow or something. Again, that might be too far, but I think that would look so cool. That way Blizzard would get a way to make these rewards feel rare and earned and something you actually have to go and do, rather than just opening up a menu and doing whatever you want. It keeps the ball in Blizzard's court and allows them to decide what you can get, rather than just you doing whatever you want. So hopefully that makes sense. Next up with Classic Plus, I think it's pretty safe to assume we're getting new zones, and probably new to mid-level zones and dungeons alongside that.
Surely.
And these new zones and dungeons naturally mean new ways to get experience, which is aside from what we already have. And that's fine and that's all good. What I'm hoping for is that Blizzard avoids stacking deliberate acceleration of the leveling experience on top of that, particularly at early levels. I think for the most part the journey from 1 to 30 is really good in Classic WoW. Things can slow down after that, particularly on the Alliance side, mind you. I've done it enough times to know. If they could pad out that mid-game experience just a little bit more than what we have at the moment, that would be good. But I'm not really looking for stacking experience buff, joyous journeys, heirlooms, any of that. Again, as I went over before, I think the game being slow-paced is just fine. Next is something that's existed since day one of vanilla, and that is called the hybrid tax. This is the idea that classes capable of filling multiple roles should deal less damage than classes who can only ever be good at one thing. The logic goes that a Shadow Priest or a Rat Pala has the option to fall back on healing, whilst a Mage or a
Bro, I mean, why Shadow Priest should be nerfed? Like, they already suck. Like, why are you doing this to us? Can the Shadow Priest homie get, like, one good thing happening to them? Also, you need to completely get out of Shadow form to actually use healing. So, I don't know, man. I don't agree with this one.
Rogue doesn't.
Maybe I'm
so the
biased.
hybrid class's damage gets quietly lowered to compensate for that flexibility, and Blizzard have acknowledged this in the past as well, by the way. And in vanilla, the hybrid tax shows up all the time, and especially at endgame, you can see this tax in full force, because what
Apple love no mage. I love kicking them like a football, if that's what you meant.
kind of tier sets did Blizzard make for hybrids? That's right, only healing sets. I mean, come on, they knew what they were doing, surely. I'm not asking for every hybrid to
I
suddenly get an
remember, bro, it was so fun playing as a Shadow Priest in Classic. It was truly the epitome of trying to scrap for survivals. It's amazing. I love it. You have to fight every single day. Is a mystery, and you know you're about to get absolutely massacred. It was good. Fighting for that that hat, like the helmet that gave you spell damage with all the warlocks. Fighting for Locomir from Nefarian. Man, it was good. Times were good. I enjoyed playing as Shadow Priest. You truly had to scrap your gear from every single place you could find, because Shadow Priest gearing made no sense whatsoever. You just took whatever you could.
A defensive cooldown, an offensive cooldown, and mobility tool. Just because other classes may have those things, or the homogenization of classes even. I'm asking for a baseline where any spec in the game could realistically be considered worthwhile for your raid slot, rather than what exists at the moment, which is the majority of the specs in the game are just not very good. The hybrid tax, I think, has to go. Next point will be a very unpopular one, I'm pretty sure, but I want to keep things faction specific, or I would like to see that at least. In original vanilla, Paladins were Alliance only and Shamans were Horde only. It was a choice that really made you pick your faction. Then TBC came around.
Nah, you're gonna choose Horde regardless because Alliance are a bunch of sissies, but I can see where he's coming from. That's actually an interesting point. Personally, for me, I don't care, because if I just want Shaman, like, I'll play Horde. If I want Paladin, I'll play Alliance, but I don't know. I actually don't know. That's a very good point he's making.
And both factions got access to both classes. And it's funny because in vanilla, Alliance are typically seen as the easier or better raiding faction, and then the moment Horde got Paladins, they've been the better raiding faction for, you know, the rest of WoW's history. But I like how in vanilla you actually are made to choose a side and commit to it. because that is clearly what the original designers wanted, and it produced a far more varied game as a result. If anything, I'd like to see Classic Plus lean further into this kind of faction-specific identity rather than away from it. Imagine an undead exclusive Death Knight class or a Night Elf exclusive Demon Hunter variant for the Alliance. These would be heavily modified versions of these classes, mind you, but I know at least for me, I would reroll 2 new characters instantly if those existed. I think what's different between each faction keeps things interesting, and making a choice should be part of the game.
You know what? He actually convinced me. He made a great point there. I actually think that I do kind of agree. I think maybe they should do it. Maybe they should do it. That's very interesting. What do you guys think of this?
But not least, I'm sure that Classic Plus ends up adding some new playable races at some point in time. Don't know what those races will end up being, but speculatively, a lot of people talk about High Elves for the Alliance and Goblins for the Horde. And at least for me on the Alliance side, I think the High Elves are essentially going to be Blood Elves with blue eyes. Now, this absolutely makes sense within the context of the game. However, that's just the Blood Elf model. It's been the Blood Elf model since TBC in 2007 forever, and to suddenly just see that model running around Stormwind doesn't quite feel right. There are actually High Elf models within vanilla already, even though they look completely cursed, which could potentially be usable, but Blizzard would have to do a lot of work to fit armor on them. All the same, I just think having Blood Elves in with blue eyes is a bit low effort, and I don't quite like it if I'm being honest. Equally, Goblins joining the Horde make no sense whatsoever within the vanilla timeline. When Goblins actually were added to the Horde during Cataclysm, that happened because their home island of Kazan and the Lost Isles were essentially blown up in the starting zone experience. They ended up on Joritar and then they joined in with the Horde. That's one specific group of Goblins making that choice. This hasn't happened in vanilla, and Goblins are literally already the neutral faction. They are motivated by one singular thing in vanilla, money. Casting their lot with one faction or the other, with what we know about the game at the moment, just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, so it's the Blizzard race. Okay, fair enough. Maybe, like, make them neutral in some sort of way, I guess. You can do that, but I would like Goblins to be a playable race. I think Goblins are really, really cool, even though Trade Prince Galawix is Bobby Kotick's self-insert. But I have no problem doing that. Like, that's cool.
If they were to join the Horde, they would need some big lore bomb to justify that. But anyway, those are 10 things for me that I'm hoping we don't see when Classic Plus actually becomes real.
Great video. Great video. Damn, I really like this one. He actually brought some seriously great points. Man, I love wheelie videos. They're good. This is one of the better ones for sure. I'm gonna leave you guys a link. Make sure to click it. Give this man a like and a sub. Like, truly phenomenal content creator.